alone, so he walked off alone across this quite wide hall, and on the far side of the hall was another opening through which he went and then finally disappeared. But just before he went round, just before he went through, I think we were all just watching his progress, mesmerised. Prabhupada alone, walking across, carrying his little white bag that he always used to carry, travelling around the world preaching. And just when he got to the final doorway, he turned and held up his japa bag and just went, Jai, and of course we all went, Jai, and he disappeared. But it was very somber mood. It's very sad to say goodbye. So the devotees were feeling the same about Sri Chaitanya, announcing that he's going to leave, and Nityananda is the sort of acts as the spokesman of them all, and now he's going to speak. Nityananda Prabhu kahe, aiche, kaiche haya, ekaki aibachani, keiha sahaya. Dueka sange chalakana pada hajarange, yai kahasi dui chaluk chamar sange, dakshine tirtha pata ami sabhajani, ami sange yai prabhu agyadeha chani. Nityananda says, how is it possible for you to go alone? Who could tolerate this? Let one or two go with you. Otherwise you may fall into the clutches of thieves and rogues along the way. They can be anyone you like, but two persons should go with you. Actually, I know, and then Nityananda gets in his, I know all the paths to the different places of pilgrimage in South India. Just order me. I can go with you. But Lord Chaitanya is determined. Well, no, he says some very wonderful things now. So he's going to speak now for several pages. So I'll sing these verses and then we'll read them. And that'll take us up to today's verse. Prabhu kahe Aminataka tumi sochadara, tumi aiche na chao, taiche na jana rama. Sanyas kariya ami chalinan vrindavan, tumi amalanyai advaita bhavan. Nila chala shite pate bangila moradanda, Thomas Abharagada snehi amakarya bhanga. Jagadananda chahe ama vishaya bunjaite, ye kahe se bhahe chahiye karite. Kamu yadin havakya karye anyata, krodhe tina dina more nahi kahe kata, mukunda hae dukhi dekhi sanyastan, tina bhave sitisma bhumite shayan, antara dukhi mukunda nahi kahe mukhe, ehar dukha dekhi jiguna hoye dukhe. Amita sannyasi jambuja brahmachari, sada rahe amarupa shiksha dandadari. Inharage amina jani vyavahar Inharna bhaya satantra charitrarama Loka peksha nahi inha Krishna kripa haite Ami loka peksha kahu nacha naparicharite Ataiva tumi sabaraha nilachare Jina kacharami tita brahmi bharakaire Inha sabarvas prabhu hai ye gune Josho rupo chale kare guna rasrajani Okay. That's the end of the musical presentation. So Lord Chaitanya, his response. Well, first he says this wonderful verse, which is where he says, Prabhu kahe, the Lord replies, Ami Nartaka, Tumi Sutradhara, I am the dancer, you are pulling the wires. Tumi Yaiche Nacho, Taiche Nartana Amara. However you pull the wires, I shall dance in that way. Which of course reminds me very much of what Prabhupada wrote in his poem when he came to America. He said, Lord, just make me dance, I'm a puppet in your hands. Nacho, nacho, mate, nacho, se mate. I'm just a puppet, but make me dance, Lord, make me dance. And then, as often in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the dialogue, it's a little, sometimes joking. There's some kind of implications and subtle undercurrents in the conversations, which is one of the reasons why the Chaitanya Charitamrita is such a wonderful literature, because it's not just a dry account. So Lord Chaitanya starts to speak about his friends who wanted to stay. He says to Nityananda, after accepting the sannyas order, I decided to go to Vrindavan, but you took me instead to the house of Advaita. That was a whole incident. The newly initiated sannyasi, he was in ecstasy, he just left. He had a couple of friends with him, and he just went through blindly in ecstasy through the forest in the general direction of Vrindavan, chanting Krishna's names. And Nityananda didn't want him to leave, so by various trickery means, he managed to get into Advaita's house. That's how we know the story. But in the course of that story, there's a memorable verse which Prabhupada quotes in the Bhagavad Gita. Because Nityananda somehow, he tricked, because Lord Chaitanya was in ecstasy at that time, he wasn't really able to, he lost his bearings. He wasn't really fully conscious of his surroundings. Nityananda arranged to bring him back in the direction of Advaita's house, so suddenly he met Advaita. Advaita came along actually in a boat to collect Lord Chaitanya and bring him to his house. And Lord Chaitanya by this time was convinced he was in Vrindavan, and that the river in question, which was actually the Ganges, must be the Yamuna. So when he saw Advaita, he said, Advaita, you're also in Vrindavan? And Advaita replied, wherever you are, Lord, that is Vrindavan.